Hi again, it's me. Before we paint this painting, I want to do a value study first. And before I do the value study, I have to see what size my paper is, the proportion, and make sure that my little square that I put on here is also the same proportion. And how you do that is you get two sides going, and then you take the corner and put it into the corner of your paper, of your watercolor paper. So that's there and this is here. And then you draw a line from here all the way up to this corner. An imaginary line. If we come down like this, it's going to be about like that. And then I can say, there you go. So I can have I can have my value study this size, or I can have it this size. See how that works? Now this little one is the same proportion as this paper, and so is this bigger one. If you have any questions after class, you can ask me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a big sky, big thunderheads. And I don't want my horizon right smack dab in the middle of the paper. So we're going to have the horizon. We're going to have more sky than land and ocean. We're going to have an ocean. So this will be the horizon. And the bottom of this thunderhead is going to be here. And we're going to have some rain coming out of it. But we want the rain to be coming out in the sweet spot of your center of interest should be, if you draw your paper in thirds, the center of interest, good places for the center of interest is any one of those places, which is these are different distances from all four sides. So we don't want the thunderhead with the rain right in the middle. We might want it over here on this side, which is kind of close to that area of sweet spot, center of interest spot. And then we're going to have some fluffy waves along here. And that's what we're going to do. And this is going to be blue, kind of a mid-tone. When you're doing a value study, you put the mid-tones in and leave the whites. So we're going to color everything a mid-tone except the whites. And the bottom of the cloud is a thunderstorm. It's going to have some darks and stuff in here. This is going to be a mid-tone. And then the ocean is going to be, and there's going to be waves in here, and those are going to be white. So we have white, 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 and come back down to white. But some of this is going to be dark. So there's going to be some dark in here with the dark rain coming down. Little darks and stuff up in here. And then the horizon is going to be pretty dark back there. And then there's going to be dark around these white waves. And when I say dark, it won't be solid dark black. There'll be some variance to it. So now we come in and we're going to look at this and we're going to follow these cute little waves around, and then we're going to come up here and we're going to be entertained around here. And when you look at this picture, your eye's going to go all the way around the picture. That's a very simple, not very detailed thing. And you want to try to link these darks together. See how I'm linking them together? And then there's going to be, the clouds won't be totally white. These waves are going to lead you up here, and then you're going to jump up here and look at this white cloud and look at this white, and then this rain's going to bring you back down, and then you're going to look at this again. So you're going to go around and around the painting. And that's going to keep the viewer looking at your painting instead of going over there and looking at George's painting. So that's what we're going to do. My horizon is going to be, and I usually use the side of I use this finger to make a straight line. See, I've got it up against that. I don't need a ruler. There's a bump there. And that's all I'm going to do for drawing on this. And try not to erase on your paper. Okay, we're going to use a great big brush, and we're going to have a nice big sky. And I'm going to use this cobalt blue, and I'm going to use a little bit of this, it's an American Journey sky blue. It's got a little tiny bit of opacity to it. It's a little bit of white in it. It just gives you a kind of a softer sky. So I'm going to have some of that and then some of this. And I'm going to make clouds that have little crispy white edges on them. And I'm using rough paper, which I always use, and I'm using the heel of my brush, and see that nice sparkly little edge that I'm getting? And I'm going to go back and smooth this off. And you want to make the tops of these clouds interesting. And you can't leave this edge very long. I don't want hard edges up there. I only want the hard edges down here on the tops of the clouds. Can't leave these for long. You got to keep back. You got to keep going back and working that wet edge. I want a little more darkness, brightness up in here. I can go into that now. That's almost too late to do that, but I think it'll be all right. Especially if I just leave it alone. That's the hardest thing in watercolor, is to don't keep going back into it. Okay, now that's the tops of my thunderheads. I might bring my horizon up, but that's all right. We'll figure out that in a minute. Now I'm going to put a hole in the cloud here. I'm going to make a cloud. I'm going to put a cloud in front of here. And you're going to be able to know that there's a hole here that goes down to the back sky. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use my brush and do the same thing, make this rough edge. And I'm going to, sometimes you don't get the rough edge exactly where you want it, and you don't worry about it. You just make it where it is. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to soften this edge, because it's coming up over this fluffy cloud and going back like that. I'm going to make another edge over here. Sort of a continuation of that. I'm going to bring the water down and soften this edge. Dry my brush. Pick that up. Soften it out. Feather it out. Now this is think maybe I'll put another hole over here. Why not? Another cloud over here. Now this is awfully blue. Awfully blue, blue, blue. I need to modify that just a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of burnt sienna in there and gray that down just a little tiny bit. Timing, that was almost too late. I'm going to pick some of that up. These clouds in here are going to be more, I'm going to put a little bit of neutral tint in there and make that a little bit grayer. These clouds are the ones that are going to have rain in them. Now keep watching your wet edges over here. If they look like they're getting away from you, go in and make sure you take care of them. And then come back to this wet edge. This is the one you're working with. Want a little more darkness. This is really a dark cloud. It's going to be, got lots of rain in it. I don't want too much water in my brush to go up and soften these edges. I want just a little bit of a dry brush. A damp brush to wet those little edges. And these thunderclouds, a lot of times they look kind of flat on the bottom. So we're going to flatten that little puppy out. Now I want to leave a wet edge here because I've got to work over here for a while. I'm going to wet this cloud and this one. And these are going to be kind of dark over here, but not quite so much. The rain is all on this side. The overhead light in here is not good. Now, I'm going to get pretty much done with this. Now the clouds are done, and I'm going to move this. Well, I don't have to move that up. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. This is an electric eraser because I have arthritis in my hands. It's difficult to pinch an eraser. Plus, they're just a lot of fun. You can order them anywhere or go to a drafting supply store. Okay, now we're going to take blue sky, which is behind these clouds, and bring it down here. And remember how we did the mingled wash? We just barely touch that. Soften that edge just a little bit. No, I want blue sky, blue sky, blue sky. I want blue sky too. Now I'm right smack dab in the middle of the paper, but we're not gonna. You can always crop. You can always crop. I'm going to get some more of this dark and put in here. And in a minute, when when it's just right, I'm going to drag the rain down. But I'm going to wait a few minutes. If I do it too soon, it will disappear on me. Let's see if it's just about right. The wind is really blowing. There's my rain. I hope it stays there. Now, if the ocean way out there at the very back of the ocean there, it's going to be very dark. So I want a really dark blue. I think this is ultramarine. I really don't want to touch that. Don't want to touch that sky because it's really wet. I'm going to leave that little line there. Later I'll come in and fix that so that it does touch. And there again, remember I'm working on rough paper, so I can get these little sparkly things that are going to look like waves way off in the distance. I don't want a wave over there on the edge. I want that kind of action to be in more towards the middle of the painting rather than way out on the edges. You don't want people looking at the edges. You want them to look in the center of your picture. Now I'm going to start bringing a little different blue in and maybe a little green. And leave these little things that are going to look like waves in a few minutes, I hope. That's way off in the distance. Way off in the distance. When you lay that brush down flat, that's how you get this, on rough paper, that's how you get this wonderful sparkly edge. Okay, let's start making this thing jump. I've just got plain water in my brush, and sometimes you can get really a pretty effect by laying some of that just plain water in there where it's damp to give you something that's looks a little bit wet. And I'm going to do a little bit of it here. I'm going to break a couple of these lines. Well, it's not breaking. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Now I'm going to come in with a little more green color, but not too green. Make another wave. Sometimes if you don't get the little jumpy, sparkly things, you just make them with the tip of your brush. Now there's a kind of wave like. Now I'm going to put some light color in here, and I'm just going to drag it along and let it leave some white in here. And I'm going to let that dry so that I can bring some sand color up. And while I'm letting that dry, it might be a little dangerous to do this, but the next step is to go in here to your waves and put some little bumps in there, because they're not a flat white. A few little bumps in there. And over here, I'm gonna, oh look, now that did just what I wanted. That water crept down in there, and that's creating a blossom, but I did it on purpose, hoping that it would do that and look right. And I like that. Now I'm gonna put a little dark edge underneath here to make that a little bit of a shadow. This is a little bit wet, but I'm gonna try to drop a little bit of that shadow in there. It's just a tiny little bit of paint on my brush. I'm just barely touching it in there. Now those look like little breaking waves. And back up in here, I'm going to do the same thing underneath these, make them look more like waves. Okay, now let's put some sand in. I'm going to take yellow ochre and maybe some of this neutral tint that was on my palette. That's a little yellow, isn't it? Remember, everything dries lighter. The sand is going to just lay there. I want to create there's foam, so this edge I want to be rough, because that's some of that foam sitting there on the sand. That edge is too hard edge. I'm going to soften that out. I'm going to bring some of this blue-green color in. I want another, put a little yellow in that to make it not quite so. You know how the green gets a little neutral tint in it to tame it down? It's green, but it's not really green. I don't like that. Now I'm going to soften these edges out. Put a little different green in there. All that foam in the surf. Now I've just got water on my brush and I'm putting in there and hoping that it will create a bit of a a little thing like that happened there. And now this is damp, and I'm gonna make sure that that sand, it's wet sand now. Okay, that's too hard edge, but you can't fix it now, you gotta wait. At this point, there's not much more I can do until it's bone dry. I might be able to soften this edge here a little bit. Nope. Okay, that's all I can do now until it's dry. So, next video.